Any ad counsel.
Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt is sponsored by the Marquardt Law Firm and does not attempt to solve your individual legal problems upon the basis of information contained herein. Instead, contact an attorney to discuss the specific facts and circumstances of your unique situation. The views and opinions of this program do not reflect the views of the Salem Media Group.
Be seated.
It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt on the radio, on Facebook, on YouTube, on talklawradio.com, on podcasts everywhere. And we're going to be talking with Angela Barker about healthcare compliance, among other things. Each episode, I talk about some aspect of Texas or federal law that could be new or confusing or hard to navigate for some people. If you have any ideas about laws or regulations that you want explained, email me at host@talklawradio.com. So today, Lexi's bothering me just a little bit because she wants more peanut butter. But we're going to be talking about healthcare compliance, where Angela provides proactive audits for pediatric home health agencies that offer private duty nursing and therapy. And Angela has been on the show before. Let's see if I can remember when. 2022, 2023. We talked about personal injury. We talked about home health. Mm-hmm. And it's because she has a remarkable journey in the healthcare industry. You graduated with your bachelor's in nursing from UT Pan American.
Yes, in
right?
Edinburgh.
In 2004. And you had a career in a pediatric intensive care unit.
Yes.
Wow. I bet that was difficult. Why don't you tell us a little more about your background?
Sure. So I did start in the pediatric ICU, and that really, as you said, it was difficult just seeing the children and the families going through those difficult situations, diagnoses on ventilators. Some, unfortunately didn't make it. And so just having to deal with all those different emotions and trying to, provide that great care and support for the family. So, and then I transitioned to home health care, private duty nursing. So I worked for Maxim Healthcare for 15 years. It's a national company that focuses on private duty nursing. So providing nurses for pediatric and adult patients, anywhere from 8 hours a day to 24/7 care. So just being able to, I think it was a great transition because in pediatric ICU, you would kind of see them just for those short periods. They would get better and you kind of don't see their progress. But in private duty nursing, you got to see them for a long term, and some would graduate from care because, because of the nursing, because of the therapy, they were able to, graduate from the feeding tube, from the trach, and off the ventilator.
That's the goal, I'm sure. Well, before we get too far into it, I wanted to say a prayer.
Sure.
Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you give to us. Please forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes, for doing the wrong thing or failing to follow your will. Please help Angela Barker and me give good information to the listeners about healthcare compliance today. Help us do everything we do for the good of your people, for our own good, and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, so we know about your education and experience. Let's go back a little bit further. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Sure. I'm originally from San Benito, Texas, home of Freddie Fender. So I grew up in San Benito. I love the Valley. Great food. So I'm kind of a little bit of a Mexican food snob because it's so good down there. And then also the bakeries. Their sweetbread is uh, life changing. So grew up. I have coming up from a blended family, so have 3 half sisters. I have 3 stepsisters, and then I have my brother. So I'm the youngest.
The smartest one. I'm the youngest.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. So
You probably learned from everybody else, right?
I do.
Their mistakes growing up.
And it's funny, I don't act like the youngest because a lot of times, when I go home to visit, they all kind of wait for what do I want to do? What do I
Mhm.
decide to do? And I'm like, okay, I don't have to make all the decisions, but it's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how it is with me, except my oldest brother thinks everything should go his way because he's the oldest.
Gotcha.
So we kind of have a give and take for that. When we play video games, he has to win because he's the oldest, not because he's the most skilled. Okay, so you've been in San Antonio a long time,
Since
though.
2006.
Okay,
Yes.
and so now this is your community, this is your home. What are some fun things you like to do in San Antonio? Do you participate in fiesta or anything like that?
I don't, only because I'm not really a crowds person.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get a little bit drained from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, so I prefer like smaller groups and not as kind of loud. And but I have gone to the parade and it was really fun the time that I did go.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean I think it's a great celebration. But I do more of like the church. I'm more
Okay.
involved in my church, and so I volunteer for our kids department as well as the women's, and then I'm a greeter at church, so
Mm-hmm.
kind of the first face when they come in, so I can make them feel welcome. So and then we have different events that go on.
Okay.
There was this one that we do. We try to do it annually, but it just depends, and it's called Mercy 110, where we have 10 different community outreaches going on the same day.
Oh, wow.
And so like cutting the elderly's grass, free gas. There's like
Okay.
a free like flea market type deal.
Wow.
So it's really fun. It's really fun. Like we were able to really reach out to the community, and they give out also they do a food ministry on Thursdays to give out food to the
Okay.
community as well.
The radio station, 9:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. are doing a Easter event
Mhm.
over at Traders Village.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to get the specifics on that during the break, but um, my show has had a table where we give out these stress ball, gavel-shaped stress balls, and the kids like those things because they like to hit their siblings with it. But I tell them, have you ever seen Judge Judy? The judge on TV. She says, "Order in the court," and she slams the gavel down. So you might think about going to that. It's kind of fun. They give out Easter eggs to all the kids and
Mhm.
stuff. Well, we're going to be talking about healthcare compliance. Before we do that, tell us about your business and everything that it does, and how did you get into that, and why are you passionate about it?
Sure. So legal nurse consulting, whenever I graduated from nursing school, there was a speaker that spoke about legal nurse consulting. He worked for a law firm. And so he said, all I do is review the records, I give my opinion. And so it's not stressful because you're not having to deal with like remembering, did I give medications? Did I do this? Or, things like that. He said, the care's already been provided. You're just helping the attorney understand it. He said, but you have to get experience in order to do that. So I kind of filed that in the back of my head, did ICU, then I did home health. And I said, I think it's time for a transition. And so it kind of came back to mind. I did a mentorship program so I could learn how to do legal nurse consulting. So I've helped on medical malpractice cases, a few personal injury, but mainly what I do is just review the records. I will help the attorney understand the medical aspects of it. So just break it down for them. If there's any strengths, weaknesses to the case, as well as missing records, because they may not know what's missing from the record. They may just review it as is. So, for example, a case where it was a OB case where the patient passed away, and so the records were missing a lot of important documents, and so I just pointed that out to the attorney to help them understand.
Okay. Well, we got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll be talking more about the healthcare compliance aspect of what Angela does. And I want to remind you that Marquardt Law Firm sponsors the show, and Marquardt Law Firm focuses on business and estate law. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Don't wait until it's too late. Spring is here and it's the perfect time to review and update your last will or living trust. Have you recently moved, have changes in your health, or had a change in your family? If so, your current documents may be outdated and ineffective. Don't risk your wishes not being protected. At Marquardt Law Firm, our experienced attorneys can help you update your documents and ensure your future is secure. Call today at 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278 or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio, where we help you discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And today we're talking with Angela Barker about healthcare compliance. This is a hidden legal issue blind spot, whether you are the owner of a healthcare company or whether you are a patient of the healthcare company. You need to know that there's regulations and laws that healthcare company needs to be following. And so part of Angela Barker's business is to help that healthcare company comply with all of those regulations. Tell us about that.
Yes. So with Maxim Healthcare, we had internal auditors that would come out once a year to kind of get a pulse check of where we're at and identify any gaps in our processes so that we could fix them, come up with a plan of correction to fix those so that we could be in compliance. So I know some agencies may not have that internal compliance aspect. So at times when you're doing audits, you kind of get a little bit blind as far as you're seeing the same things. So you need that outside person to come in and review the documentation with a new set of eyes. So we can look to make sure that your documentation shows medical necessity, that you're billing accurately, because OIG is coming in and trying to recoup money. And, if
what is OIG?
The Office of Inspector General. And so they are coming in. Also, so MCOs are reviewing the documentation.
What is MCO?
Managed care organizations. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So they are coming in also to look at that documentation to see, does it support the care that's being provided and the codes that are being billed as well.
So you mentioned the previous company you worked for, Maxim,
Yes.
but now you own and operate Covenant
Legal Nurse Consulting.
Nurse Consulting. And so you can be that third party auditor,
Yes.
Not to turn them into the authorities, but to help them correct whatever you find that's missing or that isn't going well.
Correct. So I can go through, do an audit to look at their documentation, their billing practices, and if there's any gaps that I find, I can help them put a plan in place to address those so that we can fix them before they face an audit, and especially from the state or a payer source audit. So we can put a plan in place and then help with administrative tasks. If they have any investigations that they need help with, I can also help with that as well. So sometimes they may have a patient injury or a patient death, and they're trying to get that, they need that assistance to look at that situation and see what could we have done differently to have prevented this from happening.
Mm-hmm. And so in that case, where you're trying to help them understand what happened in a bad outcome situation, what are some specific things that you would do?
So I would start by looking at what happened, the situation, looking at the documentation, reviewing the staff that was taking care of the patient. So did they have the proper competency to take care of that patient? Were they properly trained? So those are some important aspects of it too. Did they follow the plan of care? So each patient should have physician orders, and they have orders for PRN or as needed medications or treatments. So there's interventions that they could do if the patient is getting sick to try to get them back to healthy. Now, if they wait too long, then the patient's just going to get worse.
Mhm.
And so it's just kind of looking at the whole picture and seeing, okay, did they intervene properly? Were they properly trained? And was EMS called if they needed to have called them? Were they communicating with the office as well? Because sometimes in home health, the nurses could get comfortable and cross professional boundaries, and they see the parent as their boss versus
Mhm.
the agency. And so the parent says, "Oh, you need to give this." They may not have the orders to give it,
Oh,
and
I
they give it
see.
anyway.
Yeah,
And
they're
so,
providing health care in somebody's home.
yes. And so sometimes that could be clouded, especially if you're taking care of a patient for a long term. You get comfortable with the patient, the family, and you kind of develop. I mean, it's good to have a good relationship with the family, but it's also to remember that you're staff and you work for the home health agency.
Mhm.
You know,
And you're primarily focused on helping these companies with kids?
yes.
Okay. Well, let me tell you about a situation that came from a court case. Um, the situation was that a young child, we don't know how or why, but fell into a bucket with cleaning solution in it.
Oh.
And so that caused the child to need hospitalization. So the parents took the child to the hospital, and the hospital admitted the child and performed some diagnostic procedures that revealed mild irritation of her stomach and esophagus. She had some vomiting, but was eating and drinking satisfactorily. So the hospital discharged her.
Mhm.
Maybe with home health, maybe not, but we'll get to that in just a moment. She came back to the hospital because she wasn't getting better. She was having more vomiting and diarrhea, not eating, not drinking. So she was admitted to the pediatric ward and continued to eat and drink, but also continued to vomit. Well, then she started having seizures.
Mm.
And so she improved with ventilation, was administered medication to stop the seizure, and was admitted to the pediatric intensive care unit. What you worked in one of those a
Mhm.
long time ago.
Yes.
Well, then just after midnight of one of those days, the child had an unplanned extubation or dislodgement of her endotracheal tube.
Mhm.
Can you describe for the listeners what are those things?
Well, that would be kind of so normally for long term, they will use a
Mhm.
tracheostomy for airway management. And for short term, they'll use an ET tube or an endotracheal tube. And then that would be inserted down the trachea and
Through
attached
the
to the
mouth.
yes.
Okay.
And then would be attached to the ventilator
Mhm.
for providing that ventilation,
To help her
short term
to help the
ventilation.
child breathe.
Yes. Mhm.
Well, I guess unplanned extubation means that it came out.
Correct. Mhm.
Maybe because the child was moving around or because of the seizure.
So, and I saw that in when working in the PICU. So at times, so the respiratory therapist is responsible for making sure they put tape on, they secure the ET
Mhm.
tube to the mouth. And so at times, with moving or just with, saliva or such, the tape would kind of get, it wouldn't be as sticky, it'd get kind
Mhm.
of loose. And so
Mhm.
the ET tube could come out, get dislodged that way, or a child could pull
Mhm.
the ET tube, depending on if their sedation wears off. And so
Yeah.
I actually had a patient that pulled, like we were just reviewing the sedation, and But the sedation was already wearing off, so it could happen. Like
Mhm.
even if you're like right by them,
And then they won't be able to breathe.
correct. So they may have, yeah.
So what happened here is because it came out,
Mhm.
she was given oxygen via nasal cannula,
Cannula.
cannula,
Uh-huh.
at which time she was reintubated
Yeah.
with the same thing and given a different seizure medication. Her vital signs were normal after that, but then the next time they measured everything, her heart rate and oxygen saturation were dangerously low. A measurement of her exhalation carbon dioxide level suggested that her endotracheal tube had again become extubated or dislodged, so it was removed. She was given mask bagged ventilation.
Mhm.
That's like probably what we see on TV,
Yes.
where they
They're putting,
squeeze
yeah, putting it over their nose
over
and
the
mouth.
nose and
Mhm.
mouth. She was given atropine and epinephrine for
Mhm.
her heart, but that was unsuccessful. CPR was administered, multiple rounds of that, and her circulation returned. She was reintubated, and a hypothermia protocol to reduce brain injury from oxygen deprivation was initiated. However, because of the oxygen deprivation, she developed hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy,
Mhm.
which I guess is irreversible.
Correct.
So what is that exactly? Encephalopathy?
So she didn't get enough oxygen to the brain,
Yeah.
and so that caused brain damage. Is
Okay.
like a simple way to put it.
So the reason that this lawsuit was published is because when somebody files a healthcare liability claim, they have to get a doctor's opinion that that was really, medical malpractice in layman's terms. But let's imagine that this patient didn't have brain damage, like she went home, but still needed to have that trach for breathing.
Mhm.
And you've probably seen that situation before,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
And so, how is a home setting different than a hospital setting?
So the home setting, obviously, it won't be as sterile, but they do supply the DME company, Durable Medical Equipment Company, will come and provide a ventilator. So if that patient was, had a tracheostomy and was on a ventilator, they would provide the ventilator for the home. The tracheostomy, the supplies. If they had a feeding tube, they would provide the feeding, enteral feedings, and all the supplies as far as like changing out the G tube. So the Durable Medical Company would provide the supplies. You still have to have physician orders to be able to provide care in the home. So there is a plan of care that is developed by the nurse who admits the patient based on the orders that they receive from the discharging hospital. And then they would have to make sure that the staff was trained and competent to be able to take care of that patient.
So the home health
Mhm.
company would send
Yes.
nurses,
Yes.
and it's not like the parents have to do all of this complicated medical procedures themselves.
So they would
right?
have to be trained
The
before they,
parents have to be
yes.
trained.
Yes, they have to be trained before they go home. So they do a rooming in process where for about 24 hours they are in charge of all the care, and the nursing staff at the hospital will just check on them to make sure do they have any questions. They have to be able to change out the tracheostomy. They have to troubleshoot the ventilator because there are going to be times where the agency cannot provide staff. Maybe somebody called in, they don't have a replacement. So they have to have a backup plan, which would be the parents, and they have to be CPR certified as well.
And so let's imagine that instead of the bad outcome being at the hospital in this
Mhm.
case, maybe the child pulls on this tube and it comes out while they're home, and you have parents and nurses providing some of the care.
Mhm.
Is there ever a situation where you don't really know whose fault it is that the trait comes out and there's a bad outcome?
So I mean, there could be an instance of that, but it just depends on when. You'd have to obviously look at the documentation, look at interview both parties to find out when was obviously in the documentation with a patient that's on a ventilator, they're supposed to be assessing the patient every 2 hours, making sure the ventilator, checking the trach. So that's usually the standard is every 2 hours. So if they have a nurse there, they should be checking to make sure that the tracheostomy is in place. But at times, if you have gauze, you can't. I mean, there's been instances where the trach has come out and you can't see it because the gauze is covering it.
But this type of investigation would be something that you could help with.
Yes.
Like
yes.
if a home health company was accused of malpractice, your company, Covenant Legal Nurse Consulting, could come in and help that home health company assess what happened, who was responsible.
Yes.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking about sinners, saints, legacy, and a lot more about home health compliance. Stay tuned.
Todd Marquardt is sponsored by the Marquardt Law Firm and does not attempt to solve your individual legal problems upon the basis of information contained herein. Instead, contact an attorney to discuss the specific facts and circumstances of your unique situation. The views and opinions of this program do not reflect the views of the Salem Media Group.
In the beginning, God had one law: don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then he gave Moses the 10 Commandments. And now we have municipal, state, and federal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws, laws that impact you without you knowing it. So we're talking about some hidden legal issue blind spots today, but this is our third segment. And so we're going to talk about sinners and saints. You remember that song?
Yes, I do.
Love that song.
Yeah.
Well, today's saint is George Foreman.
Oh, gotcha.
You remember him?
Yes.
I tell all my kids, forgiveness is that subtle thread that binds both love and friendship. Without it, you could wake up without a dad, a mom, or children, because somebody crossed that line and you said that's the end of them. And you got to constantly forgive if you want a family, a wife, husband. It's all about forgiving. Without it, you are without anybody in your life.
So I wanted to play that quote because he's more than just a boxer. You know, he was a family man. He had a big family. I heard that he named all of his children George, or a version of George. And he also had the George Foreman grill. Do you have one?
I had one at one
You
point.
did?
Yes. They were really good.
Yeah. Were you up late at night and watching the infomercials and then thought, oh, I've got to have that?
No, I think I just bought it at that, I don't know, where it has those deals like seen on TV.
Yeah,
the
the seen on TV
Yes.
aisle.
Yep.
I never had one, but I sort of wanted one because I think I was young enough that I was still living at home and, I needed snacks. But it was probably a little too much for me. I was mainly cooking eggs or cereal or stuff like that. But if you ever have time, jump on Facebook. I have a new series called Todd's Tacos. And now I know how to cook ground meat. Usually I use venison because I like to hunt whitetail and wild hogs. And I just open the refrigerator and see what can I make a taco out of. So I'll be doing
Very
that
interesting.
usually once a week whenever I'm home alone cooking for myself. My kids are grown. They're in college or working their own jobs. And so I don't have to cook for them. And my wife's a nurse. She works 12-hour shifts and she's a labor and delivery nurse. And so if she doesn't cook for me, then I have to cook something for myself. And if it's 10 minutes or less, I can probably manage something like that. Another question about the George Foreman grill. Did you ever see that episode of The Office where Michael Scott burned his foot on the George Foreman grill?
No, I did not.
Oh, it's hilarious. So he said, the staff at his office asked him, how could you possibly burn your foot on a grill like this? And he said, well, I wanted to smell the smell of bacon cooking as I was waking up in the morning. So I wake up and I put the George Foreman grill on the floor next to my bed and I put the bacon in it and then I go back to sleep. Well, then he got up and put his foot down on the grill.
Oh, man.
So you'll have to look that up on YouTube.
For sure.
That's funny. But the real reason we're here is to talk about healthcare compliance. Your company, Covenant Legal Nurse Consulting, helps with healthcare compliance, specifically for pediatric home health. What are some scenarios where you find yourself needing a pediatric home health company to come in?
Or to help with a pediatric home health company?
Well, let's talk about like how would a family, what
Okay.
situation would they find themselves in where their child is in a serious enough condition that you have to come home and you have to have nurses come in.
Sure.
let's talk about some of those scenarios. Before the break, we talked about a hospital situation in a court case. What are some other scenarios that might cause a child to need that level of care?
So at minimal, most patients will need to have a feeding tube and then have a certain amount of feedings per day during the nurse's shift. They could have a tracheostomy for airway management. There's a lot of different diagnoses,
What are some that you've seen or heard of?
spinal muscular atrophy.
How does that happen?
A lot of it's usually they're born with that.
Oh, okay.
And then it causes, or their muscles are not strong, they're very weak.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times those type of patients would need a feeding tube. Some would have tracheostomies for airway management. Some would be on ventilators for life support. And so those type of diagnoses might necessitate or would necessitate the nursing staff in the home.
Okay. And so what kind of services would you provide to that home health company to help?
Sure. So I could help the home health agencies by, again, doing those proactive audits, looking at their documentation to ensure that medical necessity is shown in that documentation, because at times nurses may get comfortable. They may not document all the care. Like, for example, with that ventilator patient, are they doing the ventilator checks every 2 hours? Are they doing suctioning? So that's all going to show medical necessity. Are they showing that they're doing the trach care, G-tube care, feedings? So documenting all of that. So it's showing the whole picture of, why do I need a nurse in the home?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the payer source paying for a nurse in the home? So that has to be proven in the documentation. And so just making sure that that's documented. And
that's why you brought up the managed care organization
Yes.
before, because they don't want to pay for it unless
Correct.
it's needed.
Yes. And so just helping the agency as well. So if I would find, that the documentation wasn't necessarily showing medical necessity, but the patient needs the care. So helping them, develop a in-service for the nursing staff, like education for them. Hey, this is how important documentation is, making sure you're documenting these things so that we can make sure, or the agency can make sure, that they are providing, that they're able to continue to provide that care, because you don't want the patient to lose out on care when they
Mhm.
need it because
Right.
of documentation.
I would imagine that there's some home health companies that are maybe not nationwide, like
Mhm.
the one you worked with, that maybe they just started from the ground up. A nurse goes out on their own to start a company like this, and they're responsible for making sure that their staff,
Mhm.
the other nurses, follow all the regulations and proper medical procedures.
Yes.
Why would they hire you?
So I have a vast background. I was an administrator for Maxim. I did, so I was responsible for audits. I did a lot of investigations for any allegations of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. I developed orientation that went national. I also developed tracheostomy training, ventilator training for the company, or helped with that initially before they went to like a national training. So I have a lot of background on, the education and training, competency, making sure the staff is competent, as well as plan of correction, incident reporting. So if they have an incident, I had to do a lot of investigation. So
Mhm.
putting a plan in place to make sure that the patient is taken care of. So my background is in a lot of different areas, and I did operations as well. So reviewing billing. So I was responsible for recruitment. So I have a lot of different experience. So I'm not just clinical.
Okay.
So helping out with the administrative part as well.
Wow.
hmm
Okay. So if a company is growing and they are just wondering whether they need your help or not, can they contact you somehow? Go to your website,
Yes.
go email you,
Yes.
just for you to talk to them and find out what their needs are?
Yes, for sure. A
Where
good
can they find you?
Sure. My email is anbarker@covenantlnc.com. And my website is www.covenantlnc.com.
Okay, so they can find out some information about you there. Also LinkedIn,
Yes.
Instagram.
And Facebook. Yes.
Great.
So,
Okay, so let's talk more about some of those specific things that you would help the company with. Um, if something bad happens, even before anybody alleges that the home health company is responsible, uh, how would a home health company react to a bad outcome?
so typically, they would do an investigation, an internal investigation. They would, um,
Which doesn't mean they bring in a detective.
correct.
So they're
Yes.
just looking and talking to the nurses and
Yes.
reviewing the file with them.
Yes, interviewing the family, interviewing the nursing staff, looking at the documentation, assessing the patient to see was the patient harmed, and then doing a root cause analysis to see how it happened, what could have prevented it from happening.
Hmm.
So that's really important, and then putting a plan in place to correct that so that it doesn't happen again.
Hmm. I would imagine that not every bad outcome is somebody's fault.
Correct.
I mean, these patients are in extreme circumstances to begin with.
Mhm.
We got to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, we'll be talking about legacy. Stay tuned.
Don't wait until it's too late. Spring is here and it's the perfect time to review and update your last will or living trust. Have you recently moved, have changes in your health, or had a change in your family? If so, your current documents may be outdated and ineffective. Don't risk your wishes not being protected. At Marquardt Law Firm, our experienced attorneys can help you update your documents and ensure your future is secure. Call today at 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278 or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Since this is our fourth segment, we'll be talking about legacy.
And now it's time for the Talk Law Radio Legacy Spotlight. What's your legacy? Sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm.
Marquardt Law Firm sponsors the show, and attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm focus on business and estate law, including last wills, living trusts, and tax-protected inheritance plans. And so we like to talk about legacy. The whole reason of having a will or a trust is so that you can legally pass down the assets that you have. But also we have our values that we pass down to our friends and family, the way that they remember us. And so I wanted to ask you about something exciting that you're doing, you're getting ready for. Tell us what it is.
So I am going to do a missions trip to Honduras in July. So I'm really excited about that. It's an organization with Assembly of God Church, King's Castle International. And so it would be helping with kids or working with kids, evangelism, and there's also some construction that's going to be
okay.
going to be done as well. But I'm really excited about the opportunity to be able to help, an impoverished country, and as well as working with kids, because I love working with kids.
Yeah. So you laughed when you said construction. Does
Yes.
that mean that you're a little bit nervous about swinging a hammer?
I am, because I'm a bit of a klutz, and so I'm just hoping that I don't, hit myself with a hammer or something.
What's that? How long is that trip? What's the travel going to be like?
It's going to be from Saturday to Saturday, so it'll be like 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be. I'm not sure. I don't remember like how long the flight is going to be, but basically we're going to be working the whole time we're there. Helping just whatever the missionaries need help with. So at their disposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are the accommodations like?
So they have a campground. And so we'll be staying at that campground, and they'll be providing meals. And so we'll be assisting them as well, like with meal preparation and cleanup and such. So
you might learn about local food there.
Yes. That's what I'm a little bit nervous about the food, because I can be a little bit picky, but I never want to make somebody feel bad.
Mhm.
And so I just really, that's what I kind of want to focus on. Like, okay, I need to make sure like I'm open to trying these foods, and I don't want to make them feel bad, because a lot of times that's the only thing they have, and if they're giving it with all their heart, like you don't
Right.
want to make them feel bad. And so that's what I'm kind of worried about, is just the
Yeah.
food.
We'll ask God to help you
Yes, for sure.
confront that. I want to ask you a favor.
Hmm.
Just in the back of your mind, when you're trying all these different foods, think, what idea can I bring Todd for him to make a taco out of something from there?
Yes.
You'll do that?
Yes, I
Try
will.
and bring back an idea for me?
Yes.
That's cool. So part of your prep and getting ready for this trip is you're doing something to raise money.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So I
Do you
am.
want the public to know that?
They can.
Okay.
Yes. So I am doing a banana pudding. Selling banana pudding.
I love banana pudding.
Yes, for Easter. So for Good Friday and Saturday. So for anybody that would like banana pudding, so a regular tray is $30, a bigger tray is $60, and then I have some little cups for $5. So raising money for the trip, and then also I do want to take some items for the kids, prizes and such.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. So it's going to be for other things as well. And I think they like powdered Gatorade is some items that they need as well. So
Okay. Well, you're either going to be inundated with so many orders of banana pudding that you cannot fill them. Is this your recipe? Are you
yes,
the only one doing it?
yes,
So it's not like church wide. This
correct.
is your idea.
No, I'm kind of a big deal when it comes to banana pudding at my church. So a lot of people like
I'm
it.
looking forward to it. That's
Yeah.
one of my favorites. And I'm going to buy one for my father-in-law too, even though it might spoil his diet a bit. I'm looking forward to that. If somebody's listening right now and they want to buy some pudding, how should they contact you? Same way, your
Yes, my email would be perfect. Yes, anbarker@covenantlnc.com.
Okay, that's going to be great. You're going to be enjoying pudding, and you might be such a big hit that you just keep making it, even past Easter.
Yep, I could.
Cool. Well, part of your legacy, I was thinking that if Angela's gone, there's going to be lots of lives that you've touched just from your advice, your
Mhm.
teachings, that ultimately result in kids being taken care of when they're in receiving intensive care.
Mhm.
So, do you see that as your mission in life or one of your missions?
So definitely working with kids is my mission, but also with women as well. So most recently, God's placed in my heart to start a small group with women that are just looking to connect. And like we had a book study, had a really good outcome of women that showed up, and so
What was the book?
it was Colossians. It was the book of
Okay.
Colossians. It
Oh,
was a
okay.
devotional on that. And so we had a really good outcome. And there was some women, because we usually do it like once a quarter. And so that we're kind of wanting to stay connected. And so God placed it on my heart to do a small group to be able to keep in contact and keep that
Yeah.
connection going.
Tell us something you remember about the book of Colossians. What's the theme of the book?
So there's a lot about like living, it's really like living a godly life and challenging you to take a look at your life and, are you showing God's love? Are you showing, God's mercy to others? And so kind of taking that hard look at ways that you can improve your life to live a more righteous life and to please God.
How can we show mercy and love in a political climate that's so divided?
I think it's about getting closer to God. So that's the most important thing, because I know sometimes we try to change ourselves, but as we get closer to God, like it just happens.
He
Like
changes us.
He changes us. And so
Yeah.
putting our focus on God and what's going to please Him, and picking our battles too. Like I heard a preaching where it said, you can get into a fight with a skunk, but is it worth the stink?
Right. I
And
love
so,
that.
yeah, so I mean that you have to pick your battles. And so I've been trying to think of that, like, is this really worth my my time or my
Mhm.
energy? No, it's not really, to prove I'm right. No,
Yeah.
not really right.
Okay. That's great. And it goes back to what we listened to in the third segment, George Foreman,
Hmm.
who passed away recently. I was looking up quotes from him and was just found this quote. You'll have to go back to the third segment to listen to it. But he was talking all about forgiveness.
Hmm.
And while we were listening to that, I thought, Angela has a big family. They're probably not all the same
Correct.
because me and my siblings were all different.
Hmm.
And, we can come together and have fun, but somebody's going to say something.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
And so, have you learned forgiveness?
Yes. And I've definitely really done a lot of self-reflection too on when somebody's saying something. And if it triggers me, then I kind of have to go back to like, why is it triggering me? And maybe it's not them, but maybe something I have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of being more self-aware before you react and being quick to listen, but slow to speak also is really important. So again, trying to, not take it personal and like, okay, maybe they didn't mean it that way. And kind of more doing self-reflection instead of already always going to an offense.
Yeah, right. Well, how do you deal with those people that are not self-aware?
I try to help them be self-aware. Like I will, depending on if I'm close to them or not, I
Mm-hmm.
can point out to them like, hey, when you said this, this is kind of the way it might have come across.
Mm-hmm.
But it just depends on the relationship I have with them, if they're able to take that type of criticism. And I always try to come at it from positive intent. Like I'm trying to help you to
Mm-hmm.
see and to get better. Because I
Yeah.
want to be better too, and I want people to be able to tell me if I've said something to offend them or
Mm-hmm.
done something to offend them.
Wow, that's very humble of you.
It's taken work.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure.
Well, before we end the show, I want to give you another opportunity to talk about Covenant Legal Nurse Consulting so that the people in this segment can also know about what you do.
Sure. So with Covenant Legal Nurse Consulting, our focus is healthcare compliance. So I help pediatric home health agencies as well as pediatric therapy companies with their compliance. So it could be in helping them prepare for an audit or an accreditation survey. It could be an investigation where they need help with a plan of correction. It could be in investigations or billing. It could be in different aspects or just helping them with process improvement. Maybe they found gaps and they don't know how to revamp their processes. So I can help with that. So, and I can customize the help too, depending on what their needs are.
So if you know anybody that works for one of those companies that maybe they're frustrated because things aren't smooth, things aren't running the way that they should be or the way that they could be, you can refer that home health company or that pediatric health company or therapy company
Mm-hmm.
to Angela Barker at Covenant Legal Nurse Consulting.
Yes. And my email is anbarker@covenantlnc.com. And my website is www.covenantlnc.com.
It's easy to find her if you just Google Angela Barker Covenant. You'll find the website.
Yes.
That's the first link. That's how I found you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having
Enjoyed
me.
talking to you about that court case and your background and your business. Talked about George Foreman, the boxer,
Yes.
and his legacy of the George Foreman Grill. I don't really know that much about boxing. He was boxing, before I was born, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to know more about that, you'll have to get that information somewhere else. Are you a fan of boxing?
It's hard for me to watch and to see like the brain damage that they get and think of the
Right.
brain damage that they get because of that. So, yeah,
How about basketball?
I do like basketball. Yes.
Do you have a bracket?
I don't.
Oh, well, how do you contribute? How do you play against your peers? I've lost so many games. I'm definitely not winning in the office competition. But thank you for joining me once again. Angela Barker with Covenant Legal Nurse Consulting. That's A is an Apple, N is a Nancy, Barker at covenantlnc.com. If you want to know what's going on next week, I'm probably going to be talking to more mayor candidates for San Antonio mayor. So check out YouTube and Facebook and see which candidate you're going to vote for. Talk to you later.
Breaking news as it happens. Stimulating talk